Hi everyone, my name is Anna, and this semester I did my research on how to reduce wasted food in Boston restaurants. In Massachusetts, restaurants generate over 168,000 tons of waste per year, and this amount has been steadily growing over the years. Unfortunately, in 2013, U.S. restaurants diverted only 15.7% of their food waste, which signals the presence of significant issues with waste diversion. In order to come up with policy decisions that can be used to work on the issue, it is first necessary to identify its primary causes. First of all, many restaurants struggle to track food waste and therefore have a hard time quantifying the lost money and resources. While it's manageable to track unused and expired foods, it's more difficult to count in the waste left by consumers. Secondly, there are many barriers to donating and recycling. The top barriers to donation are transportation constraints, insufficient on-site storage, liability concerns, and regulatory constraints. The top barriers to recycling are insufficient recycling options, transportation constraints, and management building constraints. Some restaurants are currently collaborating with organizations such as the Food Waste Reduction Alliance to identify best practices, working with state and federal policymakers to facilitate food donation and recycling, and improving donation logistics. Corporations are more successful at rolling out food waste diversion programs than our smaller chains, cafes, and family-owned restaurants, because corporations have more staff, financial resources, and connections in the industry to make these changes. For example, Starbucks donates 100% of its food, and McDonald's recycles its cooking oil to use as biodiesel to fuel delivery trucks in the market. Currently, there exist several options for minimizing food waste in the industry. The first option is to stick with the current strategy of encouraging restaurants to follow best practices identified by Food Waste Reduction Alliance. The second option would be to pass a city law to cut down a certain percentage of food waste by a certain year, and to make waste tracking and reporting mandatory among restaurants for the sake of recording progress. Some of the benefits of passing the law include the fact that it's guaranteed to cut down a lot of waste fast. It's binding for restaurants. The law would make Boston a leader, and once implemented, other states and cities might do the same. And passing a law guarantees the improvement of recycling and donation practices and encourages the use of innovation, since these will be necessary to actually implement the changes. Some of the disadvantages are the fact that there needs to be a lot of support and city power to pass the law. It might face opposition from restaurants that don't want to take action and waste haulers that may make money off of waste pickup. It requires a difficult process of unifying baseline estimate of food waste, which is currently unclear in Massachusetts. And it will take a long time to set up the logistics, more specifically around helping every kind of restaurant to get to the target with the existing resources. In terms of continuing with the current approach, this requires less legislative push, gives restaurants the freedom to act however they see fit, and avoids industry pushback. However, simply encouraging restaurants to act might not be enough of an incentive for them to actually do so, and it will therefore lead to a growing food waste problem. I think that trying to pass a law is worth it because this option might actually be appealing to Boston legislators. In September 2015, the USDA and the EPA called for a 50% waste reduction by year 2030. It's clear that the federal government needs help of state and city authority to reach this goal. Because so many Boston residents are Democrats and are usually for progressive legislation, this effort might gain more support than opposition from the general public. Also, based on Boston contingency, it would possibly be beneficial for Mayor Marty Walsh's chance of re-election to pass forward-thinking regulation. Same applies to the 13 members of the Boston City Council. In terms of a more specific recommendation and legislative action, a proposal would have to be made by the Office of Food Access and accepted by the City Council and the Mayor, which is when it would become a law. Since the national goal is 50% reduction by 2030, Boston should at the very least aim for the same percentage by the same year. It's important to keep in mind that even if the law doesn't end up passing, it creates more public conversation around the issue and more media coverage, which can lead to recycling and donation improvements, better waste measurement techniques, and more restaurants wanting to take action. So at the very least, if we take a chance and try to pass a law, tomorrow will be a step ahead of where we are today. Thank you.